It's an honor to continue with you here in the Comfort series of life development and the phases of life development. We have covered discord and submergence, and now the third phase, emergence. There's a lot of good news that comes with this one. If we have reached the point of emergence, we come with that one breath that we have been promised. If not, and we do not survive to this point, that one breath moves on in its own form. And those of us that remain emerge. And life as we know it will never be the same. But here we are. Our story continues to unfold. Your story continues to unfold now in emergence as we come up out of the depths of the experience of submergence. And we breathe. At this point, we often look back on our experience of discord, the first phase of life development, that finding our lives not fitting like we'd hoped, sometimes in experiences of beauty and sometimes out of disaster, becoming in touch with what's most important to us and what things don't matter, learning how to handle necessary pain and to let go of unnecessary pain. That submergence experience, the second phase of life development, is where we face our greatest fears, not knowing whether we will survive the experience or not. But here we are in this third phase of emergence. Our story unfolds. Now in emergence, we begin to have a sense of gratitude. We can feel ourselves coming up out of the depths, that we could actually live through all of this and come to a new life. A sense of gratitude, perhaps ceremony and prayer, thankfulness, sharing our story with others begins to be a real possibility in emergence. Emergence, to come forth, to arise from the depths, to be seen, to be heard. Emergence. We all know the direction from which the sun rises. It arises in the east, bringing the first food of the day. We know the direction in which it sets, to the west. We know many who love to stand on the shoreline as the sun sets in the west, telling us another day is drawing to a close. Interestingly, in the Muslim faith, we find that one of the warning signs that the last days are approaching is that the sun will rise in the west. Certainly would be confusing to most of us, a clear sign that things are changing. But for now, it arises in the east and sets in the west. And as we stand on that shoreline, we share a sense of connection with one another and the world universe, watching that sunset. Many of us have had that experience of being facing the west and seeing someone dive into the water, and we hold our breath for just a moment, waiting to watch them then emerge out of the water again and feel that sense of new breath. That's what emergence is for all of us. The direction of the West is important to many indigenous peoples and on the medicine wheel as well as for the wheel of the shamans. It's that place where as the sun sets, the day draws to a close, but it also symbolizes for us the many deaths that we experience throughout the day when the sun sets on other things. A life that has been lived, a project, a company closes or dies. And so we look to the West as a time that represents the stages of life and the changes of life. And also where we come up from being submerged into a new life after death. So the West represents then that important transition in life of the death of many things, as well as the emergence of new life. And so we find that shamans from Peru on their mesa in the direction of the west will use shells to represent the west of submergence and emergence of life. Along the coast of Scotland in ages past, large towers of stones would be built to help those returning from the sea to find their ways back to harbor, these large edifices of stone would guide them along the way as they have returned from oftentimes very traumatic trips and long trips away from loved ones. And in the circle of life, looking to the west becomes a quarter of that circle. And so the V of power, according to the Bakanga tribe and traditions and spirituality, becomes the open arms facing with strength the times of transition, the stages of life where there is living and dying. And so we open our arms to that experience with bravery and courage and wisdom. So we are emerging now from experiences of trauma and necessary pain. We arise and have a new respect for breath as we first come out of that experience and we emerge into air again. We have gratitude for breath. Without it, we would not be here. Our life would end as we know it. So we come with a new gratitude and respect for breath and what it means to us, that one breath each of us have been promised. Because of this experience, we also grow in respect for those who have helped us to emerge in that experience of emerging. And we breathe. So along this trip, many have helped us, so we have a sense of gratitude and thankfulness. Our story is emerging, your story is emerging. And with that gratitude, I'm grateful that you are a part of Medicine Singing, grateful to be a part of your unfolding story. This is a sacred and new kind of life as we emerge. And as we take this next step, as we emerge, we ask ourselves, and what now? Well, we pay respect to those that helped us survive and emerge. We pay respect to our heroes, we pay respect to our helpers, and we pay respect to our healers. And that is why respect is the third lesson of the 7 grandfather teachings, and it belongs here. Respect. To respect and honor our heroes, helpers, and healers. Emerging into this new life, we want to give our very best to our guests, 2-legged and 4-legged, and those that slither, and those of the mineral nations, air and water and fire. We find ourselves related respectfully to all nations. A word of caution is appropriate here. As we emerge, we're excited to begin to share our story with others, but you will find there are discouragers. People will question your story, question its value and worth, question its truth, question you. There will be discouragers. Don't be alarmed. Don't be worried. Don't be discouraged. Move forward with your story as you emerge. One client came and told me that they had eagerly gone to share with an extended family member of their first year of sobriety in a program of addiction recovery. And the response they received from their discourager was, "Why should I congratulate you for doing what you should have done all along?" No celebration there. A discourager. But don't be discouraged. Why? Because we are finding out this very essential and powerful fact of life, that people with a story can endure almost anything. Can endure almost anything with a story. And you are having yours in Emergence. Perhaps even now you are thinking of your story. And it energizes you. And that's the difference from rumination and collusion. This emerging story now energizes you. Perhaps you're thinking of your story. So I would ask you to think, remember, reflect. Who are your heroes? Who are they? Can you think of their names and faces now? Can you think of your heroes' names and faces, the places where you met them, and what is it that leads you to call them your hero? What character qualities did or do they have that you now have taken on as your own and has become part of your character quality? Where did you meet them? When did you last greet them? How do you give gratitude about them every day in your life? Our heroes. And as you think of your story, and we can make it through most anything with our story, who were your helpers? Who have helped you along the way and led to a change in your life? Who were your helpers, seen and unseen? The seen helpers, those that come to us, perhaps they help us with some funds, some resources, a word of knowledge from their experience and wisdom that helps us along our way, our helpers. And what about the unseen helpers? The people that make our daily lives possible that we never see. But somehow there's food and somehow there's clean water, and if we're blessed, we experience all of that from unseen helpers, and we give gratitude to them every day in ceremony and ritual and gratitude. And I want to ask you, who were the healers in your life? Sometimes those are people. Sometimes that's a spiritual experience. Sometimes an experience in nature. Sometimes an experience in a dream, in your sleep, in the night. Who are your healers? But first, the people that have been healers in your life. Where did you meet them? How did you meet them? Who, what, where, and when? And what was the experience of healing? Perhaps it was a healing from words, perhaps healing from a story that was shared with you intimately from another to you, to encourage you in your emergence now. Perhaps it was a place in nature that was a healer for you. What was the texture and smell of that place? What was its location on the planet? When was that, and what was that like for you, that the experience of nature itself could heal you in mind, body, and soul in your unfolding story? And perhaps it was a spiritual experience. In the night, in a dream, something came to you and changed everything. As part of your story now, I encourage you to remember it and share your own gratitude and thankfulness. I sat recently with a famous scientist here in the United States and also from England. In his aging years, he said that sometimes I worry that I'm just biding my time until I die. As we spoke, I asked him if he had ever written down the story of his life, and he said he had not, but that when he thought about that, that encouraged him. And in the following sessions, that's exactly what he got to, is writing the story of his life, which brought invigoration and hope and a sense of meaning and purpose, pulling together all the aspects of his life into a sense of meaning and purpose. I would invite you to consider the same. Writing your story, perhaps an autobiography, or perhaps a dance, a poem, a painting, a song, your story as it's unfolding. I invite you to consider bringing it out here into the world to share with others when you're ready, in whatever form you decide. It is your story. And life calls you, calls me, calls all of us. You are to be the storyteller of your life. And that's the invitation. And what a blessing. Because all of us can do and accomplish most anything with a story. And out of this emerging story, we have a new sense of gratitude for life, a new zest for life, a new vigor for life that we find now calls us into living life respectfully, including that it is sacred. So as we go about our day, we only take what we need. And when we have extra, we give to others because of this new respect for life. And this becomes part of our unfolding story as well. So as we emerge, we find that we have lightened our load. We have let go of unnecessary pain. We have freely and excitedly at times been willing to ask for help, reach out to others. We've been willing to forgive. We've been willing to let go of any sense of control that we have and find a sense of unfolding in our lives that we actually have the resources that we thought we had to control now come to bless us as we let go of control. And our story emerges. Our story becomes one of telling about our heroes and our helpers and our healers. We become those storytellers, passing this on to generations. Remember, there is that indigenous tradition that says when a story is being told, it knows when it is being told. And all the resources and all the spiritual truths from that story will come and be present with you in the telling of that story. A magnificent experience. So let's let our hearts commit to a full-hearted life. For there's great peril here if we decide to live half-heartedly. We actually, in that experience, turn our backs on the nature of life itself, at great peril to ourselves, mind and body and spirit. As we commit to living a full-hearted life, we give respect also to ourselves. It's important to develop a self-care plan, the things that you do on a daily basis to love and care for yourself, to get the rest that you need, to get the rejuvenation, the encouragement you need, to take time for yourself and to be with loved ones as well. At the same time, consider being an encourager to others to also do their self-care. I want to encourage you to get the rest you need. I want you to eat well, to be well, to have movement, physical movement in your life, as well as emotional and spiritual movement, to know the world of dance and song or writing or poetry or novel, and particularly your autobiography. So let's become and commit to a full-hearted life in which we encourage one another to get what we need for our self-care. As we emerge from discord and submergence, there are some shifts that begin to occur that are quite predictable in the psychological and spiritual life of life development and this phase, the phase of emergence. They are as follows. We will begin to move from rumination to reflection. This is a most significant shift because rather than endless loops of unending thoughts that lead to no conclusions and no closure, our reflection now, as we look back on our lives and its development and these phases, begins to put things into perspective that when we reflect upon them, we find a golden thread of meaning and purpose that is becoming our story. That is dynamic and forward moving and healing of the past, which is why now rumination begins to shrink. We are not stuck in our past. There's been forgiveness or reconciliation or acceptance, rather than the repeated remembering of affronts and slights and hurts and wounds that have not been forgiven. So we're now beginning to see a shift, seismic in nature in terms of the spirit of the person, from rumination to reflection. Moving from rumination to reflections, we need to nurture the process. That's our responsibility. Where we used to pour lots of energy into the negative, we now pour energy into remembering through reflection and visiting places that have been meaningful to us. Those places or those persons who have been healing to us. we need to go and visit again. So our bodies, minds, and soul remember the moment of impact and healing. If that means we need to visit that place, we go there geographically if we can. If we can't, then we can look at pictures or programs related to that geographical location and recall the healing that took place for us there, for ourselves and even for our peoples. I would invite you to think about if there is a place you could visit that is doable for you. Where would it be that has been meaningful and healing or comforting to you? Perhaps it's a place in the area where you live, or within a few hours, and you could go and visit that place. If you need to take a longer trip and can do so, it's worth the consideration. Other things we can do to nurture this process and this shift from rumination to reflection is to journal. We've spoken earlier in Medicine Singing about journaling the journey. Some way to record the unfolding events so you can track and see the evolving story that will change the rest of your life. If not journaling or including journal, you may also want to use the arts. You may want to draw or dance or write a play or write and choreograph a dance, write a poem, write a short story, write your story, because with a story we can face most anything. And that is particularly true when we shift from rumination, that endless loop of meaningless thoughts that never resolve, into an active process of reflection where we go inside of ourselves, reflecting upon the life we've lived, its discord, submergence, and now emergence, and the story that's unfolding, and bring it out into a form of action that we will take into the world, whether that's visiting a place or writing a play or following your dream. We move from rumination to reflection. We are empowered by this. Once we were confused, confounded, and befuddled, now there is a growing awareness that even our sufferings have a part in the story that we're to tell. And so our sufferings and pain, our necessary sufferings in the life that we've experienced, begin to inform us about the meaning and purpose that is calling us to its story and to our telling of that story. Another difference is now we find that we will rarely spend our breath on complaining. This is a shifting that goes with rumination to reflection, because the more we reflect and the more we articulate our story, the more we want to share it with others. So we become our own storytellers, as well as we invite one another. Please tell your story. I want to hear it. Because in that telling, we both are related. So those things that we used to call coincidences or happenstance, we now see as an intricate weaving of a new fabric into our life that is emerging as our own story. A result of that is that we are finding more and more creative choices every day as we go about our living life. These creative choices reflect the impact of our helpers and our heroes and our healers, and the character qualities we have received from them or chosen as our own, and now live them in our lives. We have many creative choices, whereas in the past, in rumination, we would be confused and befuddled. There's more good news on this journey as well, because now we're moving from being exhausted to being energized. What used to be depleting of our energy now becomes a self-renewing source of internal and external energy. The more we give good medicine to one another, the more this energy grows. The way that this occurs is that this energy, as an outward reflection of the world that I see, I take in reflection, And my inner reflection and then illumination, insight, and creative choices results in an outward expression of this new life with creative choices, compassion, and caring for my world universe. In addition, each step that I take, I can measure, if you will, if it moves me closer to my dream or farther away. And as that guides me, the path gets illuminated. I make better choices and more creative choices towards the unfolding of my dream and my story and your dream and your story. And I want to help that story as well and support you as well. Another amazing thing that begins to happen is that things that we used to consider as hassles become experiences seen from this new perspective as what we might call holy. We move from hassles to seeing things as holy. Everything becomes holy now. Breath, relationships. Perhaps in the past we didn't give a second thought to creation itself. And now everything is holy now. And as such, we grow in our respect and amazement, finding sometimes for the first time an awareness of how many nations there are in this world universe that are all related to the first nation of creation, that of breath. So we begin, and that's the good news, to move from hassles to a sense of everything is holy now. As we continue to emerge, we also find ourselves doing another seismic shift from collusion to consciousness. Where we used to be in collusion with ourselves and others in self-defeating ways, or gathering with others to talk about things in self-defeating ways, these now become evident to us, and we don't want to give our breath to them. And so now, what used to be conspiracies of collusion, where we would gather to those that would reinforce our fears and self-defeating thoughts and our biases, with that consciousness we now find choice, that is in fact a choice. We no longer buy the phrase that says, that's just who I am. No. We know it's a series of choices for which each of us is responsible, and now we become even more empowered to make right choices, moving from collusion to collaboration with every nation, now that everything is holy now. A word of encouragement as well as caution is due here. If in looking at collusion and how we can become collaborators in this nature of life, sometimes in our journaling and reflection, we are amazed and sometimes ashamed or appalled at the patterns of self-defeating behavior that we discover about ourselves. That we actually believe things that now we see as quite incredulous. Have mercy and compassion and forgiveness. Be a good friend to yourself. If in discovering these patterns you have trouble doing that, get with a good friend who will listen to you and give you compassion where you perhaps cannot give it yourself at this point. So as we identify places where we have been in collusion with others and therefore conspiracies, if you will, and self-defeating behaviors, we now find a yearning, a consciousness being drawn to be collaborators. In fact, we begin to consider the possibility that we are co-creators in the universe. This is quite something. When this begins to dawn, that's in addition to why this is a self-renewing source of energy. We are co-creators in this world. So what of those resentments that we've spoken about, those resentments that could keep us ruminating over and over again and remembering our wounds and talking about them in collaboration of conspiracies? Oh my goodness, what do we do here? our resentments begin to have that seismic shift to respect. Resentments to respect. We have come to respect that unnecessary pain. Refusing to ask for forgiveness, refusing to ask for help, trying to control everything, living a life half-heartedly. Unnecessary pain suffocates us. If we continue it once we're aware of it, it is our responsibility. But it suffocates us and prevents us from emerging into this new life. So wiser now, knowing the difference between unnecessary and necessary pain, we can move more rapidly from resentments to respect for ourselves and others and the world. In addition, in order for resentments to move to respect, if we have wronged someone or they have wronged us, we seek them out if possible, to speak with them, to see if reconciliation based on mutual respect can be done. If we find that they are not open to that, and that relationship is closing in our lives, we practice forgiveness and letting go and letting down. We do not add resentments about it as an unnecessary pain because it will suffocate us and block us from this new life. And we want this new life more and more, since everything is holy now. Everything is self-renewing in terms of energy. This golden thread that becomes our unfolding story, we want to spend more time breathing and telling it than retelling what we hate. For those of us that have experienced a place on the land where there has been great wounding and there is a desire for reconciliation with the land, sometimes we do visit that place and practice some form of ceremony or ritual of cleansing, of purification and forgiveness, so that we can reconcile with the place on the planet that may have held traumatic memories for us. So we now become energized, and we have two particular things. One is that we have a growing sense of passion, and along with a growing sense of passion, the sense of responsibility. Not one that is a burden, but one that energizes us, because we know we have an impact in our world, and we want to have a good one, and we want to do right action. Our sense of passion leads us to have compassion, both on ourselves and one another, especially when it comes to forgiveness or communication and having clarity in sharing with one another. A sense of passion that it can go well, a growing sense of passion that it does go well with us, and we become an ever-growing force of good in the universe. We have a growing sense of respect, and as a result of that, our energy grows even more. Sometimes people say they even have physical healings because of this. So our sense of passion on the inside leads to a sense of service and action on the outside. And as we go about actions of service on the outside, at the end of the day, we come back and reflect, seeing the unfolding story occur, and in the next day and in the morning, our passion again goes out to the world. So if you look closely and listen to the words, you begin to see a seismic shift. We are moving from what we call character defects into a character design for ourselves as individuals, our love relationships, our communities. Do we not say that a community has character? What type of character does it have? Well, it has the type of character that we bring to it. How exciting does that become? In this process, we find that we are detecting places where there are characteristics we have that we have denied, but not now. And so we open to changing them. And so that which we have detected previously denying now becomes a decision for new life. We change core beliefs about the world by our intention. And our intention is intimately linked to the dream we choose to manifest with the remaining days of our life and this breath, this one breath. This means we increasingly take responsibility for ourselves. We stop blaming others. The more we feel that responsibility, the more our passion grows, and the more our passion grows, the more compassion we can bring into our lives and into the world, the more we bring creative choices into the world. The more everything becomes holy now. You and I. If we're not about the business of blaming and shaming others, then we're moving from tension to thankfulness. This is another one of those seismic shifts from the tension of resentment and bitterness, blaming or shaming others, that tension, chronic, dis-ease causing in the body, mind, and spirit. We move into a growing sense of thankfulness, both internally in our times of quiet and reflection, and externally in the acts of service that we do in the world. It's important to develop every day a discipline, if you will, or make a decision for having a way to nurture thankfulness each and every day. Many people I work with start their day with what they call a daily program, which is a time of either prayer or meditation, listening to a CD or DVD of an inspirational story, spending time writing in their journal, spending time in prayer. Those aspects and disciplines we can do to nurture the sense of thankfulness as we move from a state of tension into thankfulness. So as we take responsibility, growing our sense of passion each day, somehow we give back to creation, because every day creation gives to us. There has not been a day creation did not give to you. There has not been a day creation did not give to me. Often we get busy in our days and we forget that majestic thing that's happening around us. No longer so. We make it an intentional, conscious choice to celebrate and have gratitude and thankfulness to the creation and the world around us. As we're approaching the end of this particular segment of the developmental phases of life, and this particular section of emergence, we are finding that we are moving from a life of troubles to a life of tested trust. We're moving from a life that has been focused on troubles to a life that is growing in tested trust. Tested trust has come about because of our interaction either with the world universe, the healing of nature, or our relationships with our heroes, our helpers, and our healers. And as we do this more and more and make this our lifestyle and our style of life and living and life development, we find that we're beginning to trust the process. We are beginning to trust the unfolding golden thread that is our life story. Our sense of passion grows, our sense of compassion grows, our sense of creativity grows. At times, our sense of joy grows as well. No longer are we afraid, angry and bitter, blaming others. We fully accept who we are and who we are becoming as we go about our lives in the world. So we're coming full circle. Circles of life everywhere we look. We're coming full circle because, again, we see that place between inhale and the exhale. The place between the two is a moment of immeasurable choices for us, if we will but have eyes to see and beliefs to believe it, to perceive it, and a heart to receive it, as we begin to speak more and more the language of the heart. This seismic shift and shifts that are occurring, you'll begin to hear in people's storytelling. Some people's stories are stories of rumination, repeating over and over and over and over again the wrongs that have been done to them. There's probably not a one of us that doesn't know someone like that. That they spend their lives telling those sad and unhappy stories, wounding themselves over and over again, never getting out of them. Other people, as they grow in emergence at this phase of life development, begin to talk about how their expectation of life is changing from one of danger or wrongdoings, resentments or hurts or betrayals to one of sacredness. That they'll actually begin to say, I trust that all will be well. And those are two different worlds. I trust that things will go badly and I'll be betrayed, or I'll trust that things will go well and in the end all will be well. And you see, I call these seismic shifts because the cosmology has just changed from defeat to dream and delight. So our emergence brings us three assured things. Number one is an all-inclusive respect for the world universe and our place in it, and a respect for our story, and that in fact our story is part of the story of the world universe and its unfolding. Number two, interesting, empowering, is the absence of the need to defend ourselves, whether it's an external journey or an internal journey. I find myself no longer going around saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, as though I have committed the unforgivable sin. We notice an absence of the need to defend ourselves. And as we journey inwardly, whether it's in journaling or prayer or celebration, ceremony, meditation, no matter what the voices are that we encounter on that inward journey, we no longer need to defend who we are. And third, with all these seismic shifts taking place inside and around us, we move from overthinking things to a life of thinking from the heart and speaking from the heart. And so these seismic shifts means the world is turned upside down for us now as we emerge in this part of our lives. We used to live a life where we believed that the heart was the servant of the mind. That world has been turned upside down as everything has become holy now and sacred, as we know that our story is intimately connected with the story of the universe and its unfolding and evolution and change. We breathe. We breathe that one breath we've been promised, knowing how sacred even our life is in the world universe. So with the world having turned upside down with these cosmic shifts, inside and out, the heart becomes the leader in life, the leader in our lives, the leader in our relationships with one another and with the world universe. And so we find, even though we have been through terrifying experiences, even though we have left behind unnecessary pain and faced with bravery and courage and honesty necessary pain, we're arriving at a new home. Living a life of speaking from the heart, where the world is turned upside down and now the mind is servant to the heart and we speak and live from the heart. Some things become absolutely essential. Now that we have emerged into this new life, we find we're heading to a new home. We are finding that one of the most essential parts of that relationship with our new home are times of quiet. And in times of quiet, we are being welcomed into the fourth phase of life development. Welcomed into the life of quiescence.